Hi, everyone who is new. I can't see me, so that's kind of weird, but there I am. Okay, hi. Hi, Mary. How you doing? Yeah, it's been a week, okay? Yeah, thanks everybody for getting on. If you're new, all we really do here is get on Fridays, kind of talk about any obstacles, any things going on in customer marketing and community as well. And kind of just jump in and help each other out as much as we can. And for most of us, we end up learning quite a bit and making great connections with other people on the team. So today I wanted to just bring up a couple of things that had been in the community. Somebody had asked about metrics and dashboards. Vernon Darkley, I think it was. And so if we have anybody that wants to share on that, please go ahead. Anybody
Wait,
have any questions they want to share? Hold on.
wait, you can't jump into this without sharing some good news, Mary, with the group.
What?
You have good news.
Yeah, I'll be starting work soon. Yay.
Ooh, that's huge. What do you mean?
Yes, I know. I'm just, yeah, nervous. It's been a while in coming, so I'm excited and nervous and all of that good stuff.
Tell us the
And
news.
yeah, well, so I have two contracts that I'm going to be working on to help some customer marketing teams build their communities. My pitch is 3 times advocacy output by building a community. And then I have another company that is really big, and I'm in the process of becoming an employee, but I can't say their name yet. And it's going to be a little while. I won't start until the beginning of November. So, yeah, lots of fun, but I don't want to make this about me. So, metrics, dashboards, community. Somebody had some questions in the community. And thank you, Evan. Yeah, I want to hear all the feedback, all the things that people learned from Customer XCon. Ari, you want to get started on metrics and dashboards and your ideas?
Is this you getting back at me for calling you out?
I thought you said you wanted to talk about it.
I do. I love metrics and I love dashboards even more. There's nothing I love more than metrics than dashboards. And there's nothing more that I love more than metrics than reports, but I love dashboards even more than reports because they make it all easy. So, I mean, everyone here understands, I'm assuming everyone here understands the power of a dashboard, right? And it's not for our own use case. I can tell you that much. It's not to be able to go in and quickly grab information. That's not the power. The power is so others can quickly grab information, so others can visualize what you're doing. And you even can start to train people when they ask you for metrics. First, oh, sure, here's what you need. But eventually you start just linking back to your dashboards, right? So that they become really familiar and it becomes part of their natural process to review and absorb the information from your dashboards. And it's a way to kind of give yourself a pat on the back without having to give yourself a pat on the back if you're executing on your programs. So what do people like to have? Let's start with a hit list. And I don't know, Mary, if you wanted to write it down or a hit list of what you would have on. Let's start with your, well, I guess let's ask the group. Should we start with big KPIs? Like, what are the big business value metrics we want to look for? And then what are the things that we want to report on, both leading indicators and lagging indicators? So leading, what do we know we're headed in the right direction? And lagging, saying we did actually execute or we missed our marks, right, on those. And then we can talk about what we actually search for in the reports to support finding those metrics and what we put, you know, on the dashboards at the high level. Should we go in that route? Like start with big, work our way through to the reports? Does that sound good?
You know, I'm just thinking about Brenda's presentation, the CMO of Nuance.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
just looked through my photos because I thought maybe I had taken a picture of the slide she had, but I didn't. So the CMO of Nuance gave this incredible presentation. And she, you know, for a customer marketer, she's a dream CMO. Like we were all just like, oh,
Literally.
yeah. But she had a slide. So I'll try to get my hands on that.
So,
Maria, did you grab
yeah,
it?
so it's funny you say that because I was going to actually bring that up because I've been doing advocacy for nearly 20 years now. And every metric she had in there, I've at one time or other tracked that. And I'm actually just joined a new company, BMC Software, about 4 months ago. And I'm starting their program from scratch. And I've never seen it organized in the way that she organized it, which is how I organized mine. Actually, if you guys don't mind, I'll just share my screen real quick because I had that
Yeah,
slide
yeah.
actually pulled up. So I think that's what you're talking. Mary, I think you have to enable screen sharing.
Yep, I just did.
Okay. So I think this is what you were talking about, Jeannie. Was it this one? The growth engagement?
Are these your
Are you giving
slides or hers?
No, these are my slides.
Oh,
because
okay.
I actually literally went to when I was in the airport, because I'm doing
Yes.
a reference program and I'm trying to organize the content. And I thought, gosh, I just had bulletins of what we wanted to track. And I loved how she targeted the areas about growth, engagement, and activity.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
she may have had some different things under here, but I'm pretty sure I know she talked about ARR growth, like whatever your company's growth objectives are in terms of like financials, you need to align with those. So those might not be ARR growth or TCV, but these were the same exact ones as my last company too. And we don't have anything like that today. And so these are my recommendations to my CMO and my manager.
Can I screenshot these?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because these are typical.
Dude, I didn't ask. I just did.
Yeah, me too.
Ari, hand slap, Ari. So these are typical though measures. I mean, if you heard everybody at the conference, a lot of people, the way they're measuring their programs, I think. And if you have a platform, like I have Reference Edge at my own company, I have Reference Edge at this company, it really makes it easy to do this part, especially because you're only engaging in opportunities. And I know like my team is bad now, like they started the reference program last year, but it's not been formalized. And they're supporting references that are not strategic for sales. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. If it doesn't support an opportunity, we should not be supporting it. And so that's, getting alignment through your opportunities and reporting through the platforms you have. Now, this may be one and the same for folks, advocates versus program members. Again, we're a little wishy-washy right now because we have a group of people who are advocates for us, but we're going to launch an official program. They may or may not join the official program. So for a while, we may have 2 categories of folks. I want to be able to track that. And then also activity. Number of sales references, obviously marketing references. Volume's tricky. In our case, we need the volume ones because we're so low today. So that's part of the internal awareness and everything, I think, is like what this program can do to build value. But this one is the most important, I would say, in terms of, are the activities you're doing producing growth for the company? Are they driving growth? And then just a % of growth of total references year over year. Because again, we're so low today and we need to really drive those marketing and sales references. And part of that in my company right now is because the BUs are also doing their own things. The program's not centralized. So by December, we hope to centralize the program. I know a lot of people talk about NPS score too, which NPS score is measured at our customer experience level because we have another team doing that.
Yep.
I don't want to put NPS score in my presentation because this is a lot to measure already. And I don't feel like NPS falls under me. What I would love to see is for us to be able to put together, when these members join, initially this is their NPS score, by this time next year, what's their NPS score? Like, can we attribute that back to anything we're doing to really nurture them as advocates and customers? But I don't want to own that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because what you want to be able to show is the delta between advocate NPS versus non-advocate engaged advocate NPS.
Yes.
If you keep your screen up, if you wouldn't mind, I think something that could be make it easy for everyone on the call. If you keep your screen up, that slide, could
Yep.
you just for the point of this, could you copy that slide and I can add a couple in that I think are missing from this that I have been able to get a lot of buy-in and engagement from at the executive level.
I put a slide deck that I'm just starting off of this, and you know,
Yeah, so you can grab that.
Did you
Mary.
grab that, Mary?
yes, I grabbed your
Okay.
slide deck picture, and
Okay.
I'm trying to take notes as you guys share awesome information. So let's see, what do you got to share, Ari? What are you going to add?
So on the growth stage, right, you have influence ARR growth and TCV1 opportunities. So let's say at this stage, influence is better than nothing. So sure, we can say we've influenced rather than we've generated. And the only reason they have influence there, and I can tell you this, is because they're doing a manual program and they don't have the type of reporting they need to be able to actually say, this is what we've generated. But influence is a good start. And
I actually do mean generated.
okay, so how are you measuring what you've generated?
So by closed won opportunities, I'm only looking at closed won opportunities.
Right, but how are you saying advocacy has generated revenue in those closed ones? What are you saying you're responsible for in that opportunity?
We're looking at the dollar amount, both the AR growth value, the dollar amount,
Yeah,
and the TCV.
Right. So what I'm saying here is you're saying we've influenced this amount of revenue because we've touched these opportunities that have closed one, right?
Yeah.
We've influenced. How much we've influenced, we're not saying, but we've touched them, right?
Well, I'm saying how much I'm a specific dollar amount.
Okay, so what I'm asking is like, let's just say one example so it's easily chunkable. You have X contact, let's say it's Nike, comes in and you have sold Nike. How are you measuring your revenue attribution to Nike opportunity that is closed?
I'm
What are
measuring
you
it by the
doing?
fact that we had a reference call that supported, or a site visit or something that we did that supported this deal.
Okay,
But if the deal is $100,000,
right, that's what you exactly, Gina.
what are you saying? We influenced $100,000? Are you saying,
Oh, yeah, I mean, we can't say
Yeah.
That's
a specific dollar amount. There's no
Right.
way we could get to that.
so that's what I'm saying at this level. That's
Sorry, I
generic, and
misunderstood.
it's okay. So that is influence. You have the right term there. That is influence. That is not generated. The difference is if you go to your
yeah.
sales team, and this is what Rob and I are actually working on right now at Influitive. It's what I did at my past company as well, which is I'm going to sit down with the sales team and I'm going to get the sales leaders and I'm going to say, hey, look, you've come to me and said reviews are super important. But then you also said case studies are incredibly important. You need more of those. But then you also said we need to have more webinars because those are the things that are really dragging in. And you have all of these asks that sales needs more of everything with no prioritization, which is okay. It's all important. But let's figure out, just like we've done in marketing with sales, and you say, here's what a lead scoring model is, right? We say, if they've downloaded this webinar and if they've done this, then they get a certain amount of points. And once they reach a certain level, then they become someone we can reach out to, right? Because they've qualified themselves. So let's do the same thing. Let's go through each of these and just, you don't need to boil the ocean with them and go through like, what's an analyst call worth? No, go to your biggest things. So here's reviews, here's references, here's referrals, here's case studies, here's webinars, right? And whatever else your company really leverages in the sales cycle. Go to those biggest things and say, what percentage of the deal is this worth? If it's used, how much, like you're saying reviews are hyper important. Well, how much so? Will you say it's worth 0.5% of the deal? Say it's worth 1%, 2%? Some people have very high numbers for what that are, but you go to them and give them a range. Say references. References are the most crucial thing in any customer advocacy program if you're not a completely 100% scaled company. If you're completely scaled, references diminish like Bitly, my friend at Bitly was like, we don't use reference calls. Like, we don't need them, right? It's not a product that requires a reference call. But if you're a company that does references, what your customers say about you when you're not in the room, there's nothing more dire, right? You can make a deal or lose a deal with a reference call. Literally. We've stolen customers away in the past at past companies from other companies simply by the reference calls, right? Customers that used X product now use Y product. It's the perfect example. And that has led to the move from buying one to the other. Anyways, they know. So we're going to say, what is that, 5 to 10% of the deal? Like what?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, not
Can I
only
just
do you have
jump
a
in real
number,
quick?
what's that?
I just wanted to jump in real quick. A while back, Leslie had had certain numbers for things. I wonder if anybody on the call remembered what those were.
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And Leslie's on the call, I believe.
I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I'm a little slow. I'm trying to take notes.
But what I would do is I would not use other people's numbers. I would work them out with your sales team, because every company is going to be different. But now you have two things that actually help here. So one, you have actual hard numbers that you can say we're not influencing, we are generating this much revenue, right? Sales team has qualified you. Now you have these numbers and you can actually show hard metrics of what your team is actually building. Two, you have a priority hit list of where you start and where you finish, because now you can say, I know references are number one most important. Sales, this is why I'm working on references and case studies first and second, because this is what you're saying is most important to closing deals, and I want to help you close deals more. So now they can't go, it's all or nothing for everything. So you're kind of putting their feet to the fire a little bit here in a nice collaborative, right? Cross-channel approach. But that's the difference between info. Now,
Yeah.
you need to start there, probably not. And it's hard because if you actually want to measure all of those things, you have to have the tools that are able to attribute that, right? And if you don't have that right away, start with influence because it's much easier to do. What's missing on here is velocity. So a huge one in sales cycle deal flow is velocity, right? From lead to close. And what isn't measured on here is the delta. Our customers, our prospects that are touched with our customer marketing materials faster to close than those who don't. And where I'd start with that one is just to get on the map with it, references. Do we close more deals faster with references than no? And your obvious answer would be yes, right? But at my company, at Coveo, when I was at Coveo, one of the things that we went through was we had in our SMB line of business, we had a very, I don't want to say immature, novice. We had a very novice sales group. In our enterprise, I mean, these were people who've been doing this for 15, 20 years of their life. But down at the SMB, we had a novice group. And so they were using references all the time. They were using references before they should. Like they hadn't even done a demo. And they're like, hey, they want to talk to a reference. I think it would be a great way to get more attention. It's like, no, you'll burn through everything we have like that. And you're not using it as, right, the carrot to bring them along. So, but by the time I got there, what had happened is they said, okay, we got to get, like my partner, Tracy, she was like, we got to get a handle on this. So she actually said, like, you cannot ask for a reference unless it's in the evaluation or negotiation phase, right? So they had pushed it back. But now by the time it was there, it was so late that they needed it yesterday that one of the problems was if you actually started adding references in, it could actually delay their close because it lengthened it out. So they were not using references if they could get away with it, which makes total sense. If you can close without a reference, why wouldn't you? So I looked at that and then I looked at what they were doing in enterprise, and in enterprise, it turned out that if they used a reference, it shortened the deal flow by 3 months on average. This was an over a year-long sales cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
huge. It's a huge,
Wow.
right? And you're talking, $1 million ACV. So there was just a lot there. And so this helped shorten that dramatically. So now we said, No. I know you want to get away with not using it if you can, but we are showing a higher close rate with deals that do touch versus don't have a reference, and you're shortening by this much. So we are going to build this into the process. References become an actual step within your sales cycle. It is an exit gate to move from X phase and X phase, right, to the next phase. So
Yeah, and the Teradata we did, I mean, again, we're starting from ground zero here. We were able to track, we promoted like, what's the percent overall you're likely to close with a reference? What's the percent within a major like timeline, like our events? I was able to work with our marketing ops team to look at all of our sales activities done in the major events. Say you're 26% more likely to close within 3 months, versus extending that. And then also typically we had like an actual 20, I think it was a 24% higher value of the deal, because a lot of times a reference led to like expansion. So we were able to track all of that stuff, which was fantastic. Unfortunately, we're not here, but I absolutely agree with you. Those are probably, I mean, just as important as these, because when you tell, your CRO, if your sales is located under CRO and your sales folks, like, you're right, the sales, and that's why I said our mindset has to change. No longer can our salespeople look at, okay, I might do a reference, I might not. No, a sales reference should become part of this journey and making sure it's at the right time, and you will absolutely close your deal faster.
yeah. What's funny is, even if you can't track it, you're now making me think of this, and I haven't gone through this stage yet, but even if you can't track yet, you can't attribute at this level, like, when someone does or doesn't use a case study and you have that, it's still good to have that conversation with your salesperson, because now what you've done is you've established a rapport of value. Because right now, what happens to a lot of us in advocacy, and this is where I started. Yeah, we started with influenced ARR, was cool, but that's a soft number to me. And in my sales head, I'm going, my reps are closing all of this. My reps are doing 99.9% of this. Product maybe, and the sales engineer gets some of the love, but it's really on the sales side that we're going through. It's the product demo, it's a this that's closing. Sure, you're influencing, but it's soft. When you start to get into these numbers, now what you've done is create a framework for how much you're actually doing and helping, right? What that attribute. Now that's just in a mental mindset, not necessarily an attribution at this data collection level. That's just helping them realign and compartmentalize where that value is aligned to. But I will say that the deltas are hard numbers. Those are great numbers that will give you a lot of clout. And the point of these numbers, these KPIs, isn't just to show, that you're moving the needle. It's to buy you, right, visibility and reach within your company. Because you can, what's going to end up happening when all of us go through this, depending on the size of your team, but we're either trying to build or trying to attribute, and we're trying to manage and juggle. How much time do I spend tracking all of this versus how much time do I actually build and deliver on all of this? And so it's really hard. And so you're going to get to a point where you either have to have more headcount or you have to get tools, right? And you can't do either of those if you don't have buy-in. And so it's this chicken or the egg where you're stuck in this constant like hamster wheel of activity. So these are really important to know what these are. That's why this conversation is a really powerful one.
Hey, Ari and Maria, my name's Robert. I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to hop soon, but I had a question. I work at Adobe, formerly reported to Kevin Lau, who I think some folks might know Kevin. Yeah, we all know and love Kevin. He left Adobe a little bit ago, but I worked on his team for about 1.5 years. And my question here for the group, this is really great. I also lead our metrics and reporting practice for customer marketing. I think given where the global economy is, given the focus of, like CROs, and this is very like sales focused, right? This is very demand gen focused. But do you think, Ari and group, that an equally important thing to be tracking is impact on retention, especially given kind of where the economy is headed and how important retention is for folks? I think, that's my question. What I've been really focused on is like measuring that delta. Ari, you said deltas are like hard numbers. We look back like preceding 4 quarters, who has churned, right? What accounts have churned? how many of those accounts are engaged in our advocacy ecosystem versus unengaged? And what is the difference in that, right? In that rate? And we've actually found it's a very glaring difference. And so, you know, you can then take to your leadership hard data to say, look, 15% of accounts that churned in the last 4 quarters were engaged in our advocacy ecosystem, but 85% were not. And so
Yeah.
that doesn't tell
Yeah.
you that you should be investing in our programming, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know
I
what
mean,
it
at,
is.
at the growth level, I was gonna say, other than Delta and Velocity,
Uh-huh.
which is what's missing from here, in my opinion, Velocity is huge, is churn rate.
Got it. Okay.
was
So we're
gonna say,
thinking
that's
about it in the
missing-
right way.
That is, you are thinking about growth
Yeah.
metric. Churn reduction is very powerful for any SaaS business, any subscription-based model, right? Churn reduction. Not everybody on here is a SaaS model, but if you are, churn reduction is huge.
Yeah.
Um,
We're tied into the voice of our customer efforts. Again, that's why that's not on here, but they're going to be measuring that. Again, after we get the program members and advocates established, taking, you know, a year, 6 months glance, year glance and saying, okay, are they part of this program? And are they, you know, number one, are they part of this program? Or number two, they might not be part of the program, but they may have, you know, had reference as well. And are they, you know, still a customer? From another, just, can you guys still hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I got quiet there for a second
Sorry.
too.
The other thing I thought was really that came up, I was actually really surprised about at Customer Con. I met a lot of people who were out of jobs. Their companies have just done some major reductions based on, you know, obviously probably the economy. But in fact, some of those jobs I actually interviewed for, and I was choosing to leave my prior company interviewing. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. And I'm wondering, I mean, obviously, if you have these numbers and the velocity numbers that already mentioned, the retention numbers, like this is, you know, like this only helps you advocate, you know, to keep this program in place. And this is essential. This is an essential function, and the references are critical to moving your company forward. So I think that's, you know, really critical. And I tell my manager, like, we have got to get these KPIs in place. We have got to be tracking better metrics. And luckily I'm in a great space because my old CMO is now my new CMO, and I had no idea that was going to happen. And he loves advocacy and he loves metrics. So he's like totally in line with, we need to get these established. Because he even wants to, like, I mean, he's like, I want to take stuff to the board because this will get more investment in your organization. So like, what better way to have it, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like, there's no question.
Yeah.
When you're not doing this, you're an activity based, and you're relegated to the type of conversation that's activity based. When you're growth mindset and you're revenue based, you are relegated to those activities and into those groups. What did she say? It was my favorite thing. She's like, when I approach a C-level, it was something like, the language you use to communicate is how you'll be delegated to. So if you talk to them like a product person, they're going to delegate you to their product person. If you talk to them like X, if you talk to them like their own job. And she said something really smart, which I loved, which is, look, how do they talk? There's talk. Go back and watch the cab, right? How they talk to customers during a cab. What are the language they use? Go back and look at the content you have on all of them, not just the numbers, but the language, right, that they use, and how you communicate with them.
Yeah.
Is how they're going to delegate you.
She said, you get delegated to who you sound like.
Yes, that's what it was. So
Wrote
much
it
simpler.
down.
Yeah.
So much simpler. You get delegated to who you sound like.
Yeah.
Quoting.
I like
she was
that she said
I loved her.
that she works, like, she often goes back to like working on executive communication and encourages people to do that because there's such a gap between how we talk maybe as even individual contributors and how we talk to the executives, and how a lot of times she will just ask questions.
Yeah.
So what are some hard numbers that we can take and add to this awesome slide that Maria's presented?
So I would say growth delta.
Well, actually, though, Ari, because we're going through this right now, as Ari had kind of mentioned, the one thing that I'm kind of seeing on this slide, and it's kind of the process that we're going through right now, is actually the progressional order of each one of these buckets. Just to make it make sense, to me at least, would be you want to look at your program and the engagement, and then you want to look at the activities, and then you want to look at the growth that you're driving for your business. And so each one of them kind of compounds on themselves, because if you're not going to be driving the new advocates and the program members, then you're not going to be driving the activity. And if you're not driving the activity, you're not going to be driving.
So these are listed in order of priority, not in execution, right? But what you're saying is growth, you would put below growth, I would say lagging metric. Engagement and activity are leading metrics that let us know we're heading in the right direction to get to these growth metrics, right? So what's missing that if it was written down on here, I would say is the delta in time to close.
Okay.
So, and start with one use case. Don't say for all your reference activities, say just for call, sales reference calls. So the easiest to track and attribute to the opportunity. So you can say do deals close faster and at a higher rate and at a higher total value than deals without, right? A call, a reference call. Then I would say the churn that was brought up, was that Robert? Who was that earlier who brought up churn?
Yeah.
So the
Robert.
delta, right, in engaged advocates versus non-interned members. Because that's, what is that doing? That's saying how valuable your program is. And it's all stuff that you can say, yeah, of course, if they're advocates, they're less likely to turn. They're advocates, right? They're like, no, but let's see what the numbers are and why it's so important to turn them into advocates. For
So
engagement,
that would be, okay, so that's under the growth still?
yeah, that's all under growth. Under engagement, the number of net new advocates, cool. It's, I would also say number of total advocates. I would also have the total ACV of all of your advocates together, like how much money is actually wrapped up, how much account dollars are wrapped up in your program, right? So I've got Nike worth 4 million. I've got this company worth 10 grand. I've got this company worth 30 grand. What's that total value, right? Of total contract value that you have in your program.
Okay.
But more so on engagement is even more the number of net new advocates or total advocates is how many advocates are engaging in 3 or more activities with us. Because
Yeah,
a
totally.
net new advocate that does nothing, which is where you see a lot of our programs fall short. We get them in and then they don't come back, right? It's like, oh, we're so excited. We got all these people coming in and then they don't continue to engage. And it's generally because we're driving transactional advocacy, which we'll get to in the next stage. Another one of engagement is, so in our maturity model, and the one that I've used over the last 7 years that I've been building, is we have groups, right? We segment our advocates on their maturity model. So these are the ones who are just in the learn and delight phase, right? Where we're delivering value out. These are the private phase where we can ask them to do stuff, but it all has to be private because they're not ready to do public stuff yet. So what we do is, how many do we have in each of those? Like, can I ask you, so you know the visibility of your company, how many do you have in each of those phases, right? I've got, 100 or 20% of my accounts are in this phase. 40% of my advocates are in this phase. 30% are in this phase, right? So whatever your segmentation model is that you're moving them through your advocacy program, right? Because a brand new customer, you're not going to go, oh my God, come keynote for us at Salesforce when you don't know anything about the product yet, right? You're not going to do that. And so what is that phase to getting them to there? From an advocacy product that overlaps with their product maturity, right? There's a product maturity model and adoption model, how they're going through. So align that over. So it's, that's something, if you have the ability to do that, how many, what is your percentage of that you have at each of those phases? And then was there any other, Rob, at the engagement level?
Yeah, I might add in by the total number of advocates you have by type. So if it's like a primary admin of your platform, if it's an executive sponsor, and then I'm not sure if you just said this and I just missed it, but that delta of total people of advocates in your program over total people that exist within that bucket. So you can create a ratio there.
I've got one. You want to get more buy-in from your CSMs, right? You want to get them to start recommending and promoting more customers and then sharing your advocacy program and pointing them in that direction. CSM leaderboard, which is not based on how many are they referring. It's all based on activity. So which CSMs accounts are the most active in there, right? So we're doing those one or more activities, and you have a leaderboard that's just based off of those CSMs. And I built this before a tool. I built this in Salesforce. So you can do it without having a secondary or tertiary tool, right? So I measured in Salesforce, here's all the accounts that are active, that are filling things in, and then correlated to the account owner, right? To the CSM, which it could be like we had an account pod actually, but I pulled out of that pod this CSM member because we had a field for customer success. And that way they could see themselves and compete without even spiffing. Just the fact that like, they don't want to see themselves at the bottom of this list.
Yeah,
Right?
I did something similar and I looked at President's Club specifically. So those reps, CSMs on the, who are at club, how many advocates were from their accounts?
And I will tell you this, that CSM list was definitely, we made space for it on my dashboard.
I had a dashboard when I worked at Demandbase, and we used Influitive. And for this engagement part, almost all of these numbers were on there, but I also so we had customer programs that I would use to get people to join the community and be a part of just the forum. And then those people were nurtured into becoming advocates. So it wasn't just, here's the number of advocates we have, here's the number of active advocates we have, but here's the number of people that are customers who are likely, or there's certain things about them that say they could become advocates in the near future. Like they had finished a certification with us. They had, I don't know, like said they wanted to be in our user groups programs and things like that. And it was nice to have that, to be able to show some like that gap, so that it wasn't just, here's all of our customers, here's this advocate, but an in between that said, this is where we can be going. That's all.
Love that. Does that make sense at the bottom? Like this is the stuff that part of this is what makes up your dashboards, and part of this is what makes up your reports. Reports are really used when you're trying to fulfill a lot of activities, right? When you're looking for things, when you're trying to understand how many do you have in a group. And then activity, what's missing from here? I'd love to hear from the group, because I think this is where the whole group will have a lot to say. And I know we can measure lots of stuff. We want to boil it down to what's really important, right?
Wasn't in the engagement section, wasn't Brenda talking about the linkage between advocates within other marketing activities? So for example, if there is a customer who keynotes on the stage of your major event etc., attributing that.
So Lighthouse, we call it Lighthouse accounts.
Well, to that event. So let's say that that event generates $5 million in pipeline. There's an advocacy component of that pipeline generation. And then you can cascade that to any demand gen campaigns, any social media campaigns,
That would
And-
be over here, right?
Yeah, and we had a field on the campaign record. So anytime there was a campaign that included some sort of reference, it could be a quote, it could be, you know, a customer speaker, and anything like that, it was on the campaign record.
I know she also mentioned, and I didn't take a picture of her slides. I don't know why. I wish I would have. But she specifically in like the activity, I think it was under activity, she specifically broke out number of speaking engagements and number of thought leaders and influencers. I think the thought leaders and influencers actually may have been her engagement.
Yep.
Because she considered that so important to that area. So I hope that those slides should be shared from that. If not, we can probably.
I just reached out to Sarah
Oh,
on
okay, yeah.
LinkedIn to see
Yeah.
if she could share them.
Great.
At the activity level,
Yeah, at the activity level.
yeah, what I did at activity level is I had a funnel. So in the different stages, I was like, I had in Salesforce, because we had created a task and there was a drop down of what stage they were in. A lot of manual updating for this hygiene, but it was what we had before we were able to buy a tool, which is, so in the drop down, I had advocate selected. Right now, I'm not saying write this down, but advocate selected mean we have established who we want for this advocacy action. Now, not everyone do we have one selected. Some we want to put a challenge out to the community and see who fills it. But have we, because some people came in requesting, hey, I'd like to ask S customer to do Y thing. So is the advocate selected? Has the advocate been asked? Has the advocate confirmed? Is it in active creation? Like, are we creating the case study? Are we actively planning for the webinar? Was it completed? Is it on hold or was it denied? And denied is just as important as anything else, because you, in the denied, when they put it to denied, it does not allow them to close out and save that task unless they put into notes why it was denied. Because a lot of times you're like, oh no, they don't want to work with us. And you go look and it's like, no, they had a major release that was coming out at the end of the month. So they didn't have time. They'd love to work with us. They said next time. So the people just copy and paste that response from the contact. So what I had was in a funnel, the percentage that were in each stage of that funnel. And so that we could look week over week and month over month, were we moving people through the funnel to completion? And so I had in there for activity, right? How many completed, how many were active? I didn't care about how many were asked or how many, I cared about how many were active, how many were completed, how many were on hold, and how many were denied. Does that make sense? And then you could also see these bigger macro trends like, whoa, we just had a month of denials. Oh, it's conference season. Maybe we should plan next year not to be asking a lot of asks around conference season. Right? But you have the numbers to show like, oh, we really got to watch out for these areas. Our customers are busy. Something's happening in these months, and it allows you to explore and ask the bigger questions. Right.
It also allows you to, if for some reason or other, it's kind of like you're also a pulse to understand what I call the state of the health of the customer. Like when I was my prior company and the most recent CEO joined, we were having so many issues with customers, like migration problems, etc. And we had customers on hold. Like that's important information for your CEO. And the fact that you know that and it aligns too with a lot of times what's in the Salesforce around like customer success, state of health checks too, whether on the, green, yellow, red. And so like your CEO and your leadership team understands like you are a pulse for that, state of health and how you can help enhance that as well.
Absolutely. I just remembered I lied. So I just want to say that back. I lied. How do I switch off text? No, I just want to draw this. So I did, at the top, I had asked. How many asks had come in? So that you could show the movement down the funnel of asks, right? Active, completed, denied, or on hold. And on hold were the ones where if people want to know when you put something on hold, it's like, we were going to do this digital webinar with X company, and we're still going to do it, but we're actually not going to do it now till Q4. And so I didn't want to have to go recreate new activity. So I can now go look back at that campaign and I could see who we had assigned to it and go back to that person because we communicate, hey, I know, so we said we were going to do this. It's going to be pushed out to Q4. Would you like to do it then? Yes. So this act of activity is still on hold. And then it would show me, what do I still have sitting out there? Because this can help me hold my different marketing teams. Mostly this was on marketing more than sales, accountable. Like, hey, you said we were going to be doing this. What's going on with this? Hey, you said you were going to follow up. We were going to do this case study. We got them to say yes. And now we pump the brakes on doing this case study. You know, where are we at with that? So you could go back and constantly look at those that were on hold. What else? Any other activities?
Not me.
If we had any more, we're gonna have to get a whole person just to do metrics.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said, if you add any more, we're gonna have to get a full-time person just to do metrics.
Totally. And then that's where my biggest conundrum was, because like you need the metrics to prove the system. You can't get the good metrics unless you're doing the activities. And then you can't do the good activities if you're constantly trying to chase down the metrics. And so I had built this whole thing out and said, I'm going to share a story that's private. So, Mary, maybe you could pause. You don't have to stop, but maybe just pause the recording.
Okay.
The process.
Are these calls held over Zoom, Morgan? Yes. Is that? Or are you talking about something else?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about something else.
Okay.
Thanks, though.
I haven't been able to stay on top of chat. I've been looking, like trying to include a lot of the information Ari gave in the slide deck that I made. And
Somebody
I'm
had
gonna have
mentioned
to go
user
back.
groups, so I started going off on a little tangent about how people were doing that. So,
Oh, yes, perfect. Yes, user groups is a huge part of all of this.
Yeah. We didn't add any community metrics into that. That was just advocacy specific.
Yeah. Yeah, I just loved like this whole conversation because when I was at Demand Base, I'll just show my screen real quick. And if there's anything on here that's embarrassing, sorry. Because I'm not okay. I don't know what to say now. I get ahead of myself. Can you see my screen? Because I can't. I've got chat up and okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you, person. I don't know who said that. All right, I'm trying to get some of the Zoom stuff. Like I kept track, so I made this dashboard inside Influitive because that's what we used at the time, and just kept track of all of these things. And then with this, I was able to like send a weekly report straight to my CMO because he's very nosy. I mean, he wanted to know what was going on. As far as new members, the challenges completed. And then over time, I was able to like break down the challenges, break down member activity and how many people could come in. And it was just really helpful to have this dashboard, which was very specific to me, but also you can see a lot of information there. So I just wanted to share that to say, hey, I've got something to share too. Sorry, my dogs are being crazy.
So going back to the activity too, one of the things that we measured, like number of specific, like customers who completed evaluations where we were considered a leader. Again, I'm not doing that right now. I hope to get there for the new company, but we would have, like, I would call them my money slides, 2 slides, one for sales that would be like 3 numbers, you know, percent in sales cycle, overall win rate, or reduction in sales cycle, overall win rate, and then percent of the actual sale, closed sale, whatever. So 3 to sales. Now we call that my money slide for sales. And then we would have another one about, you know, enhancing the market perception, but in terms of our leaders, Gartner, Forrester, those evaluations where we consider a leader, and how like literally like got customers to support those. That was also a huge one. Because it's not only sales, it's like you're enhancing your brand, you're enhancing, you know, what the market and the perception says. So that's another one where we measured specifics in terms of, I think that's what maybe Brenda, when she was presenting that too, the other day, was talking about, that's why she broke out the number of speaking engagements, because that was like extremely important to her, because those people are out in the market being the influencers.
Yeah, I really liked her call or her session. That's the link to Brenda there, but I don't know what the plans are as far as sharing any recordings from Customer X, but it was really good. I have to admit that going into it, I was like, a CMO, what are they gonna say? But I didn't know who she was, so that was just my own skeptical stuff. So we didn't get to talk about community or a lot about Customer X because we had such great information here about metrics. Thank you, Maria and Ari and everyone who jumped in along the way. These calls, usually we have a lot of people jump in and share their ideas. Next week, Val Geisler's going to join us and talk about what she learned at Customer X. But whoever wants to jump on and share, that'd be great. I reached out to Callie to see like if she wants to come and listen. Sometimes she's on these calls, sometimes not. And I'm gonna go back through the recording and work on that slide deck just to add more from both Maria and Ari. And then I'll share it again in the community. And that's pretty much a wrap for this week, everybody. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Hi, everyone. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. See you.